what a change from Monday night. We were talking about Donald Trump's approval rating recovering, but now it's completely different. They really don't have anything. They don't have Congress. They don't have the Senate. They are a 6-3 minority in the Supreme Court. They didn't win the presidency. They tried really hard. And so all they have is to attack Donald Trump's approval rating day after day after day and hopefully find a chink in the armor. And they had one for about a week and now it's over. And I hate to beat a dead horse, but we are going to talk about Trump approval, but from a different angle, a little bit more about the economic angle. We're going to look at some very, very specific details, especially about how people are talking about it. And quite frankly, how quickly it rebounded is really, really stunning. But where we're going to start is a brand new poll that is, quite frankly, not good for Donald Trump. It's from The Economist. And that makes sense because people who follow the economy are super butthurt about Trump right now, to be honest with you. Uh, they're really not happy. Donald Trump's approval rating is dropping. He's beating his own record for rapidly annoying American voters. That's an interesting way to talk about the highest approval rating politician of literally anybody. But even when Donald Trump does something well, he exaggerates. He won the popular vote last November for the first time in 3 tries. Although, what a scummy way to write this. Was The Economist bought by China or something? I bet you they're shilling for China. I don't know. Maybe somebody can back me up. By a 1.5 point margin, the mandate was massive, he told Time. Well, Republican winning the national popular vote's a really big deal. And of course, as we've talked about, every single one of his policies, overwhelmingly popular. But in fact, it was the slimmest margin since 2000. But it was also an improvement on Mr. Trump's 2 previous popular vote losses by 2.1 points in 2016 and 4.5 points in 2020. Well, about that 2020 election. As staggered leaders worldwide have discovered, Mr. Trump sees his reelection as a vindication of the MAGA movement and a mandate for radical, speedy action. Yeah, I agree. As measured by right direction, wrong track. But they didn't mention that anywhere in this poll. Yet 3 months into his term, there are signs that his popular standing is eroding. His approval rating has fallen by 14 points since he entered office. Oh, that's even more than CBS's 12 points. Whoa. More steeply than the 5-point drop he had suffered by this time in his first term. Well, listen, this is all about picking your measuring sticks. That's a recurring theme in polling. I could cherry pick polls and give you really any number. I could probably pick my numbers and then Quinnipiac and show that Donald Trump's approval rating went up since he was inaugurated or whatever. But in polling from YouGov, The Economist, again, YouGov, not a very reliable panel. Americans gave Mr. Trump a net rating of -7 percentage points on his handling of the economy, compared with positive ratings at this point in his first term. Well, the economy was in a little bit of a different situation. Nearly 1 in 5 of Mr. Trump's own voters in 2024 say they disapprove of his handling of inflation and prices. But what did they say about immigration? I'd love to see a benchmark. Oh, they don't have that. Not enough information. But for complete whiplash, let's go to Newsweek. Donald Trump's approval rating suddenly shifts. Did it shift down? I don't know. Let's find out. President Donald Trump's approval rating has taken a surprising turn, with 2 new polls showing a sudden surge in support for the president. It's like these articles came out at the exact same time. Why it matters: Trump began a second term with higher approval ratings than ever. Yeah, but in recent days, polls have begun to show his popularity firmly underwater after he released his new program of Liberation Day tariffs, which rocked markets and heightened concerns about inflation and a possible recession. Well, I think they heightened risks of economic retaliatory actions from our global partners who are all of a sudden sort of upset about being called to task. But after most of the new tariffs were paused in one of Trump's biggest U-turns yet, and with the markets now bouncing back, polls are showing that his popularity is beginning to climb back up. Yep. 2 recent polls have shown Donald Trump's approval rating climbing back into positive territory for the very first time since he announced the new round of tariffs. Rasmussen poll tracker now shows that Trump approval rating stands at 50%, with 48% disapproving him, giving him a net +2. Since April 4th, oh, good for them. I didn't even do the math on this. Since April 4th, Rasmussen's tracker has shown Trump's approval rating in the negative. But good news came for Trump in a new poll conducted by JL Partners. They're a good firm. Sometimes they're a little noisy, but I really like them. They do good stuff. And quite frankly, I would have appreciated if Daily Mail had gone with us instead of JL Partners. I think they would have had a better fall, but whatever. Between April 10th through 14th, among 1,000 registered voters, which shows that he has an approval rating of 48%, while 42% disapprove. That doesn't seem quite right to me. Maybe it's because they're panel only and they're getting a bunch of normies, but 42% seems low. I know it's not as good, but you should go with my number, to be honest with you. But here is the Real Clear Politics aggregate. And you can already see it kind of like peaking and going back. It's like, what's it being driven by? Rasmussen Daily Mail. Look, 3 out of the last 4 polls were negative in the black. And economists, I don't know. 13th to 15th with a -8, it just doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know if that's an outlier or if they're shilling for China or what. Let's just check. I mean, that's their lowest ever. So they pulled one, they came in at +4. That's low. This looks like a sandbag to me. Looks like they're one of those people that just doesn't give Donald Trump a shot. Look at this. There's no way that Donald Trump, what is this? 11? It doesn't even give you the year. What year is this? 2020. November 15th, 2020. Donald Trump had just won. And the approval rating, he's not even in office yet, according to the economist, was -8. That's jacked up. So my conclusion is that they are not very good at polling Trump approval, and they have a massive left bias. But here's where we're at today. The snapshot, again, not much movement. Net +2, 50% approve. Republicans are on the way back up, 60% strong approval, 76% total approve. Not much else to speak about except for that 46% right track. Here's what it looks like on a graph. Oh, look at that. The stock market crapped itself and recovered. And so did Donald Trump's approval rating, and the index is tightening back up. I wish I had Biden's index chart. Maybe I'll pull it out sometime. Look at that. Look at the jump. Biden, man, March and April of 24, he was at like 42, 41%. Oof. Donald Trump, 50% today. Yeah, the index for Biden was horrible. I think it got to like -33. I think was the lowest. We hit some overnights at -36. I mean, that's like profound. That's like 24% strongly approved, 60% strongly disapproved. That's horrifying. And, that was Biden, horrifying approval rating. And yet they call Trump the lowest approval rating president, whatever. Here's where it's looking with the 10-period moving averages. Trump 1 over Trump 2. Trump 1 is the dotted line. Trump 2 is the solid line. And I don't know if you can see that there, but it's, it's tracking higher. Kind of interesting how it has almost the same cyclical action, but it's tracking higher than Trump 1 now. Came in like basically about the same thing. I think this is like an artifact here of the moving average, how it came in lower, but it's, it's tracking. And then it's, again, I think it's going to be like this. Biden had this bounce in May of 2021 because of the mask stuff, and rest is history for Biden, except for this period here was the 2022 election and the Dobbs decision. It gave everybody a chance to free up and forget about how bad Biden was all of a sudden. But here's the market. We're looking at 5 days, but here's the month. And it's like, okay, whatever. Didn't really move much. And I understand that people are following the 10-year treasury and people are maybe a little bit concerned about the dollar. It's dropping, it's plunging. I think it'll all like kind of reverse itself. But we'll see. I don't know. We'll see if China breaks. But look at this. This is fascinating. This is organic searches for the term stock market. Wild. Pretty wild. You can see everybody's like, oh my God. Oh, it's not that bad. Forget about it. Let's move on with our lives. It doesn't affect us. It only affects the billionaires. And they screamed for a while. And yeah, here we are. Wall Street Journal, Economist, Bloomberg are all in trying to talk the economy into a recession. Yeah, especially on top of that Jim Cramer CNBC Black Monday psyop. But if somebody's got a window up, I can't do it because I'm talking. I wonder who owns the Economist. I wonder whose financial interests they have. I mean, it's just a hunch. Maybe I'm wrong. But here's some new numbers, and they are after stock market puke, and they're pretty interesting. How would you rate President Trump's handling of trade issues? Not the economy, like literally trade and tariffs. And 43% say excellent or good. That ties Biden's highest rating ever on anything. I think it was national security, maybe. I forget. Really high, though, compared to Biden. I mean, Biden was getting like 23s in immigration. 11% fair, but 42% poor. That 42% poor is routinely lower than the 45 to 52s that Biden would get on, again, literally everything. And, you know, party numbers. Why isn't this scrolling? There we go. Party numbers. Let's take a look. Democrats, not good, but Republicans, 50% excellent. Interesting. Oftentimes, on all of the issues that Biden was rated on, Democrats would only give him a 25 or 30% excellent. Republicans like this 50% excellent, 20% good, and independents are like, they don't like this issue, but Republicans absolutely love it. Only 17% say poor. That's really strong. And in his handling of trade issues, is Trump more aggressive or less aggressive than most recent presidents in pushing what's good for America? 73% more aggressive, 13% less aggressive. Everybody says he's more aggressive, except, Democrats and 18 to 39-year-olds are less. But what's interesting, let's go out and see. This is a little bit of crosstab kung fu. So people who think that he's doing poor on trade issues acknowledge 67% of them that he's more aggressive. And so they don't like that. They don't like that he's aggressive with our trading partners. But people who rate him excellent overwhelmingly say he's aggressive, 90%. And they love it. They beat him up more. What a great signal. In terms of tariffs and trade agreements, have most countries treated America fairly or unfairly? Only 36% say fairly, 48% say unfairly. This is a really good question. This is the first time we've asked this. This is the crux. A plurality say we're treated unfairly. And we've talked about how much people think that this is about jobs and not the stock market. And it's pretty much everybody with a plurality or a majority, except for Democrats. A majority of Democrats think we have been treated fairly, 53%. Only 28% say no. But it's completely the other way around for independents and Republicans, who are pretty much polling in lockstep on this one. Yeah, pretty clear. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? All of these countries know that they've been ripping off the United States, and the day has come for that to end. The president needs to reset global trade. And so here's why I've been saying it's really hard to poll on tariffs. And it's really hard to isolate the signal, define what the economy is, ask the questions in a way where people actually know what you're talking about, because oftentimes they don't really know what's going on. But when you have these quotes and you give people an opportunity to agree or disagree with a very clear statement, you get the crux of what this is ultimately about. Remember, 48%, a plurality, say we've been treated unfairly. Only 36% say fairly. 50% say China is an enemy of the United States. Over 70% say their economic interests are not the same as our economic interests. And here you go with that statement. 57% agree, 37% strongly. Strong agreement. Only 37% disagree, so it's plus 20. The president needs to reset global trade. That is a mandate. That's what it looks like. It's not a 1.5% national popular vote. Kamala Harris wasn't going to reset trade, and Trump is. This is literally his policy, and everybody overwhelmingly agrees with it. 80% of Republicans, 57% of independents. 34% of Democrats, even only 44% strongly disapprove. So that is what this is about. But wait, there's more. These are unreleased numbers, also fresh off the press. April 10th, I think, was really the day where the stock market kind of recovered and flattened out. So this is all post, the little hiccup there. How would you rate President Trump's handling of economic issues? 46%, really strong, only down 2% on good and excellent than the previous time we asked it over a month ago. So this affected him hardly at all. Hardly at all. 30% excellent. It was 30% excellent over a month ago. 43% poor. I think it was like 40% poor last time. So a little blip right after this thing. And Republicans, this is he's their guy. 50% excellent, 26% good for a combined total of 76%. And independents are upside down by a little bit. Whatever. But Republicans, these are the same Republicans. 80% of Trump voters said that this is what I voted for. Is President Trump's economic policy better or worse than President Biden's? 47% better, 44% worse, still net +3. I think it was net +6 or 7 last time. Again, there were some ramifications, but they're going to be short-lived. They're going to be disappearing, I think, especially after some of these trade deals start coming. In terms of dealing with inflation, is President Trump's policy better or worse than Biden's policy? They're talking about how tariffs are going to inflate all the prices. 45% better, 44% worse. It's not his best issue here, but he's still net +1. And in terms of creating new jobs, is President Trump's policy better or worse than Biden's policy? And here's what it comes down to. Again, people don't understand the nuances. Obviously, this policy is geared towards making jobs. But of course, everybody's out there hearing the recession word, and they conflate recession with lack of jobs and whatever. But I mean, it's about writing this ship at a zero hedge from graphics from Statista. This is a peek at what our politicians have done to us, to Americans, hollowed out the middle class, sent our manufacturing overseas. And what's crazy, you look at the timing, and Bill Clinton gets a lot of crap for NAFTA and all this other stuff. And yeah, sure, I guess Mexico manufacturing was up and coming, but look, there was a boom in U.S. manufacturing headed into 2000, headed into the new millennia. What happened here? Why did U.S. manufacturing completely implode in the George W. Bush era? Must be because Republicans are completely captured by globalist corporations as well. China was the most favored nation going back, I don't know, somewhere about here. And all of a sudden, it was around, 2005, where things just accelerated in a major way. And it wasn't, again, I don't even think this is a great financial crisis. It happened here. Maybe it was a shift in our economy to a service economy. Maybe it was Amazon and Walmart's fault. I don't know. But we manufacture a hell of a lot less than China right now. And we didn't. As recently as 2009. That's what's incredible. And so if you look at that chart I had of per capita total public debt compared to median real income, that chart started to shoot up the ability for the random average American to contribute to their share of the per capita debt. Shot up in the mid 2000s to where it is today, 5 times higher. So from here to here, the American middle class became 5 times less capable of paying back their share of the total public debt. So, I mean, we can talk about these long trends, but this really is a recent thing. This is like global homo Armageddon. That's what we're facing right here. And that's why it's gotten so crazy. And again, that's why I think everybody's fighting Donald Trump on this. But the fighting's not done. Besant's grand strategy is to use tariff negotiations to isolate China from the rest of the world. I said that, I think, a week and a half ago. I said it was brilliant. Everybody said that Donald Trump did a flip-flop, but what I said is he turned the entire world against China. They're isolated. Very smart move, clubbing the entire world against China. Trump is hiking tariffs on China to 125%. Yeah, Zero Hedge said the same thing. Yesterday, President Trump laid out the stakes in the ever-escalating trade war between the U.S. and China in typical laconic fashion. We may want countries to choose between us and China. Remember that you'll be slitting your throat if you try to go around the United States. They mean it. With the White House adding that the ball is in China's court, China needs to make a deal with us. And I guess China is reticent. They leaked some of their treasuries, of course. They're probably going to sell US equities. But I think this is going to escalate. And that's scary because we talked about how ready, willing, and able American voters are to go all the way up to boots on the ground in Taiwan. It wasn't a majority for boots on the ground, but it was a majority for every other type of military action. And that's World War III. And so one of the things that China can absolutely do is go after Taiwan. Maybe they don't like our whatever onshoring, re-onshoring chips. But it could get crazy. They're talking about the nuclear option, and this is something that I didn't even think about, but apparently we've done it in the past. But last week, Charles Gasparino started a firestorm rumor that as part of the U.S. assault against China's capital markets, all part of the ongoing trade war, the Trump administration would respond to Beijing's sales of treasuries by delisting Chinese stocks, by booting major American depository receipts off of the New York Stock Exchange, things like Alibaba, Baidu, JD.com, all of whom have more trading on the US exchanges than they do in the Hong Kong exchanges. And this might be an awful big blow for Alibaba because for them, for instance, I suspect that they have a lot of supply piling up. And this would take a huge chunk out of their liquidity, their ability to raise capital. That's a really strong blow. Then you have this escalation. California now suing Trump to stop his unlawful tariffs. Gavin Newsom is the first person, the first governor to take action against Donald Trump. And we can speculate why Gavin Newsom is so willing to help China. Maybe it's Silicon Valley somehow. I don't know, all the influences in San Francisco. But this is it. Sued President Donald Trump to halt his sweeping tariff regime. California on Wednesday sued President Trump, arguing that his implementing his protectionist trade agenda is illegal. Federal lawsuit makes California the first state to challenge the Trump administration over its wide-ranging tariff plans, which have whipped up historic market volatility and frayed Americans' relationship with its allies and trading partners. So I don't know. Maybe this is presidential. Maybe this is existential. Maybe this has something to do with California's ability to, stay in the black. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see and watch it. But he is not the front runner right now, and I don't know if this is going to help him because, again, I think people, as we've seen, are pretty much on board with this tariff stuff now that we've gotten past some of the bad stuff. I don't know. Maybe when they can't buy the stuff they want, the Chinesium crap on Amazon anymore, people will flip, but I have no idea. But Fed Chair Powell gives the starkest warning yet on potential economic consequences from tariffs. President Donald Trump's significant policy changes, including on tariffs, are unlike anything seen in modern history, putting the Federal Reserve in uncharted waters, Chairman Jerome Powell said Wednesday. These are very fundamental policy changes, Powell said in an event hosted by the Economic Club of Chicago. There isn't a modern experience of how to think about this. Well, it's your job to figure it out, dude. Do you want it or not? Stop whinging on the world stage. Powell said the level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated. Well, it's like zero on everybody except China, and that the lingering uncertainty around tariffs could inflict lasting economic damage. They talk about uncertainty over and over and over again. I think when there's certainty, then they can get their algos dialed in and get their arbitrage and basis trade set up. I think uncertainty, it's like, well, how can we milk the markets? I think that's really what's going on here. He's probably a creature of Wall Street. I don't know his background, but it makes sense. With Trump's tariffs putting the economy on a path toward weaker growth, higher unemployment, and faster inflation all at the same time. Higher unemployment. The goal is to increase employment. The Fed is also facing a situation it hasn't dealt with in about half a century. We may find ourselves in the challenging scenario in which our dual mandate goals are in tension. Balance inflation. And what's the other one? I forget. But here's what's going on with Powell is that Trump has asked the Supreme Court to let him fire agency leaders. And let's just control F here. Powell. Where'd it go? Yep. The case is testing a 1935 Supreme Court ruling that let Congress shield high-ranking officials from being fired, paving the way for the independent agencies that now proliferate across the U.S. government. The legal wrangling ultimately could test whether Trump has the power to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. Because basically, I think Trump wants Powell to cut rates. Powell has been reticent. And I guess we'll see where that goes. If you've learned something, please follow us at rasmussenreports.com, Rasmussen_poll at Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Mark_R_Mitchell at Twitter. And thanks for watching.